Okay, so we've got Daisy's hair dry now, and essentially what it's about now is, as I said earlier, just bringing all of the different lengths together. So we have, if you look at the actual technique, we've got the shortness through the top here that just gives you that sort of velvety, suede-like texture, which is obviously where the term suede head comes from. And then we have the shortness through the centre of the back, working out into the existing outline. I think in the 70s there were lots of things that had a slightly awkward balance, in both in terms of hair and in terms of clothing. And I think one of the keys to the technique is that these longer sections don't get too layered and too light looking. They need to retain a feeling of heaviness. Otherwise it becomes something else. It becomes like a softer, wispier shape. And I think the suede head thing has to have an element of toughness and has to have an element of hard-edged nature about it. And then obviously through the top, we have just the longer fin of length that's kind of trapped between the short triangle that we started with and the short hair on the top. So that essentially what that does, it sort of wraps around everything else, and the idea is you don't actually see it when the hair's combed smooth, but when you ruffle the hair through, all of a sudden you've got this funny little kind of extended piece that comes into play. So I've actually just tightened up the graduation through the side with the two little sections. So I've come through here tighter, and that tightness is going to work into the fringe, and then essentially to cut the fringe, I'm just going to comb the hair forward, just hold it down with my hand just to keep it, and then start just in the center and just very gently go around the edge. So I've got the hair combed across, so I'm actually removing length but with a pointing technique. It's not much fun to have this done because it covers your face in hair, but and then just blend with the length through the side. So essentially what I've done is to blend the longer hair into the short hair, but sort of retain it on the outline. So you have that nice, and then what I can do now is to comb the hair down in more of a straighter manner and go in much more aligned with the hair shaft. So you're now just removing the bulk of the edge, not the obviously not the length, and you'll just end up with that little kind of gamine but tough edge to the haircut. And making sure that if you notice, as I comb the hair through, I kind of bring the comb that way, so it straightens all the ends of the hair, so they're kind of in the right position to be cut. And I just bend my fingers very, very slightly because it just helps to fan the hair out a little bit. So you can really kind of take minimal hair out. There's no occasion where I cut across the hair because that would give you like a much less refined finish. And I kind of like it when it's combed in really, really smooth. I think that's kind of even cooler. And then you have these kind of funny lengths through the sides. Okay, so we've got the texture working now in the front, and I'm now going to move on to the longer fin of hair that we've left out, because obviously that, apart from being blended onto the edge, that hasn't been cut. I want to keep it long, obviously, but I want it to have some sort of semblance of shape. So that's the length that joins onto the outline, and that's what we'll work with. Just follow the shape of the head, not really blending into anything in particular, and then kind of work out to the length that's on the crown. So that's the kind of longest point now, and then I'll just very gently just kind of point through that hair. Probably just do it from the side actually. doing it in a one-er because it's only a very fine weft of hair. You can see the old colour here. It's at this point that you have to start thinking of what you're going to do colour-wise. I think we're going to go with something quite vibrant. And suede head, it doesn't really necessarily have a very definite colour palette, but it had this kind of funny, what I thought would be quite cool is just to put a little white line into each of the haircuts. It's almost like the early 70s was kind of a little bit mod and ska music was very, very big, certainly with the skinheads and then with the suede heads. And I just thought that kind of little sort of two-tone colourway that was a big part of ska music would be quite cool. So that black and white monochromatic thing, or white with a base colour in here. So I think that would be quite cool. This gives a really nice texture as well, just going in at a tiny little angle and just kind of taking out a little bit more in each area, so you just get a little bit more of a chunkier feel to the hair as opposed to pointing very gently. So you just got to make sure that each area of the shape is, in and of itself, is proportion, but also how that relates to the rest of the shape kind of works as well. Okay, so I'll leave that for now. When you're doing this, I think it is important to move around the head as well. As when the hair's dry, you can really get a sense of how the hair's reacting to what you're doing to it. So I'm not going to layer the sides at all, but I'm just going to lift them right up. And obviously, I haven't cut these at all yet, so I'm just going to lift them right up, maintain all of the outline length, obviously, and then just come back down and just, once again, just point into, so that as the hair falls into the outline length, there's not really too much of a line. Obviously, there's going to be a difference in texture because it's really short and then long, but that's kind of part of it. That's kind of part of the look. And then what I just need to do now is just to blend that outline in, and then we're sort of there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to actually straighten the sides and then just refine the outline into the length, and then I think we're more or less good. Okay, so as I said earlier, I love the balance of the hair being short in the front here and then the length in the sides. Just a very small detail now. Obviously, I haven't cut any of the edge really, and this is sitting pretty nicely, I think. You can kind of get a sense of how the graduation works. You can almost make out where that curve comes through. And I think all we need to do now is just to hold the hair down quite tightly, use the length behind the ear, and then again, using the tips of the scissors, just very gently kind of interkeeping all of the length through the center of the nape. So once again, you exaggerate the elongation of the shape in the back, and it kind of almost exaggerates that flatness. So now we'll just replicate that on the second side, and you can see just here, just that little edge there. So obviously you can either have the hair smooth or just, I've straightened the hair because I wanted to check the edge. But I think with the natural texture in it, it would look pretty cool as well. I like the idea that you have almost like the smoothness on the inside. Or even, I kind of also love the idea that the hair would be really tucked around see he has that really narrow, groomed silhouette. So all we need now is some beautiful colour from our colour director from our LA Academy, Kenny, a Crombie overcoat and some ska music, and we're sorted.